Hey everybody, Omar here, the Knife Shark guy, and I am back with another fun-filled video for you today. And today we're going to go ahead and continue on with, I believe, part 5 of my Kershaw discontinued collection. Like I said, I pulled all these out because it's been a while since I've actually talked about all these knives and why they're in my collection. I'm sure there's other people out there with discontinued collections. Mine's on Kershaw. It pretty much reflects how I collect and why I have certain knives in my collection. And this whole collection came about because I was looking for a group of interesting and unique knives that Kershaw used to make that they don't make anymore, and put them into contrast with what's now coming out in Kershaw and what Kershaw's doing now. So this is sort of like a look at the past to see where Kershaw was, where they were going, and where they are now. I mean, it's kind of that kind of a look. So, because trends happen in knife companies when they produce certain models, certain knives, and you can see like a trend happening with all these companies, with what they come out with, or at least what they will predict people will buy. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the collection. I'm going to go ahead and bring out my first knife in this part 5 series. And the one that I'm bringing out right now, you guys may have seen this one. Maybe you haven't. If you're an avid knife collector, you're familiar with this knife. This is the Kershaw Bump. This knife is another, again, all these discontinued knives, you can still find them, but they are becoming more and more rare to find. So let's take a look at this knife. This knife kind of has like all, I'm not even sure what the material is. I believe it's like neoprene or some kind of a sort of like rubbery, texture on the knife. You certainly don't see this material anymore. It's kind of like plastic on it, and it also has like these rubber grips on it. The steel on this knife is 14C 28N. The blade steel size is 3.5 inches. It's a spring assist, and it comes not with a liner lock, but with what they call a stud lock. So basically they put the lock here on the front of the knife, so it kind of acts like a thumb stud, right? But as soon as you open it, there's a spring inside the stud that allows it to pop out, and when it pops out, it locks the knife in place. Very interesting design. You don't see it anymore. This is a Ken Onion design. Model number of this knife is 1595. Came out in June of 06. It's another thing about these knives. They put the date on the knives when they came out. You don't see that too often. Try and keep the camera in focus. So yeah, it's got a nice black wash pocket clip on there. Just an overall good overall carry. It's also a flipper as well, as opposed to being just a thumb lock blade. Like I said, it is a thumb lock blade as well. Technically, you should not be able to flip the knife out using this, but because of the way that the knife was designed, you're able to just pop it open quite easily, and that's because the spring assist is helping it. So really very nice knife. Kershaw Bump is the name of this one. So my next knife that I wanted to show you is the other Kershaw Bump. This one is in all S30V. It's a black DLC coated blade. It has a starburst pattern on it. This knife went for right around $129. Like I said, it's S30V. The knife came out in March of 06. I think it says 06. My eyes aren't that good anymore, so. But yeah, it's got the nice starburst pattern on it. This one's got G10 on it. And I also forgot to mention both knives also have a lock. My thoughts on the knives having locks back then, I don't believe that the popularity of knives have risen to the point where there were enough people that were comfortable carrying knives as much as they are today. So they put locks on a lot of their knives. That's what I'm guessing. I'm not saying that that could be the reason. All I know is even on these spring-assisted blades, they had locks on them. It could also be that at this time they were beginning the spring-assist line. Because at this time there were quite a few manual knives in Kershaw's lineup. And then between the period of 2005 and I'm going to say 2012, all their knives became spring assisted. So you can see the trend in Kershaw and what they were doing. At that time, they were trying to predict what was going to be popular and what people would actually buy. And I think spring-assisted blades were it at the time. Now, Kershaw's moving away from the spring-assisted knives. If you notice, you look at their brand new 2020 lineup, a lot of their knives are manual knives now, as opposed to the spring-assisted knife. So, same thing on this knife. It also has the stud lock on it, which also doubles, I guess, as a thumb stud. Really interesting design. Kershaw bump and starburst pattern. All right. So moving on, let's go ahead and do the other one. If you remember, I believe probably in one of the other videos, the Kershaw Discontinued Collection, I showed you a black DLC coated blade called the Barrage. If you go back and you want to see that video, you can. You'll notice that the knife looks just like this, except this knife is not called the Barrage. It's called the Salvo. As you can see, it's a completely different looking knife. Again, I mentioned that this knife could be sort of like a precursor to the Kershaw Leek, or maybe you could see it as sort of like a larger version of the Leek. Basically, in my opinion, this knife looks like they took a Blur and they took a Leek and they jammed them together and they had a baby called the Salvo. That's the only way I could put it. It's got the Tech Trek on there. I mentioned that sort of material before, which they've actually brought back on one of their knives. It's just a different version of it. This one feels more like the those fake carpets that you see in department stores. That's what this feels like. It's called Tech Trek. The thumb stud on the knife is not a lot of, you don't get a lot of purchase on it, but you can get it. It's a very, very tiny thumb stud. It's also just really, really small. Very hard to get a purchase on it. This is a frame lock knife, as opposed to the other two knives which I showed you, which were liner locks. And the pocket clip is tip up and tip down only on the lock side. So, still a really nice knife, a good size blade. This is one of the more popular models back about 10 years ago. Kershaw Salvo, real popular version knife. All right, moving on to my next offering. My next knife is called the Mini Mojito. And yeah, this knife is, the steel on this knife is 420 HC, I believe, or HC 420, excuse me. Steel. Continuing on with the stud lock on there, as you can see. Again, they put this on a lot of their knives back then. This is another Ken Onion design knife. Really just a really kind of cool little knife that they came out with. It's got this sort of, it's not Tech Trek. I don't know what this material is. It could be G10, but I'm not really sure. But it does add some sort of grip to the knife. And again, this knife is a spring assist, the Mini Mojito. Really interesting piece. Had to get that in this collection. A lot of my knives are Ken Onion knives. Like I said, he was the premier lead designer at the time. Between 1999 and I'm going to say like 2007, they probably had only a handful of knife designers. Excuse me, and I'm sure that those people at that time were probably under contract to stay with Kershaw for a while. I don't believe Kershaw's doing that anymore with their designers. I think they're just having them all come in and design something and then they'll leave. At least that's the way it seems like, because they've got so many designers working for them now. I doubt that any of them are contracted to stay there. That's just my opinion. Mini Mojito, really cool piece. All the knives you're seeing here, most of them are aluminum scales. None of these are premium titanium knives. This one I know of is an aluminum scale knife, but still a really, really great piece. Interesting story about this knife. The stud lock on this knife actually broke off about 2 years ago. And I was so depressed over it. I didn't know what to do because this is a collectible piece and I knew the knife was very hard to come by. And so I didn't know what to do. Someone said, why don't you go ahead and contact Kershaw? Maybe they'll fix it. Because they have a warranty. They have a limited warranty on all their knives. So I called up Kershaw, and wouldn't you know it, they said, yeah, we'll repair your knife. I said, but it's discontinued. You guys don't make this knife anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm sure we'll be able to fix it. Just send it in. They sent it in, and they replaced the thumb stud lock, which they don't make anymore. I thought that was really kind of cool. So if you have any old knives or anything and you guys aren't taking advantage of the Kershaw limited warranty, you're making a mistake, because if they can do that to a knife they don't make anymore, can you imagine what they would do for your knife that they still make? And they did it all free of charge. All you do is pay for the shipping. So it's a lot like the Chris Reeve spa treatment. When it comes, but theirs is more of like, if it's broken or if it's repaired, we will fix it type of thing. So, yeah, Kershaw Mini Mojito. The next knife is one of my favorites. I was going to save this one for last. It's the Kershaw Groove. You may have seen this knife before on the earlier video. This one... The one I showed you before was black G10. This one's in gray G10. You'll probably see that in my collection where I'll have a different variation of the same knife. That's probably because it's my favorite. Not that I need it, but, it's still very, very much a knife that I had to have. The knife only runs on washers, and the sucker is very, very smooth. The knife is designed by R.J. Martin, and it's got these grooves in it. This knife is discontinued, but I think you can still get the knife without the grooves on it, and no longer in Sandvik 14C28N. So they were just much more carefully crafted knives back about 10 years ago, at least in my opinion. Really nice flipper design. This knife came out in November of 2007. So, Kershaw Gray Groove, designed by R.J. Martin. Really great classic piece. And finally, my last knife in this collection, or not in this collection, but in this half of the collection. I said I was going to do 8 of these videos. I might be more. I don't know. This is the Junkyard Dog composite blade. The top of the knife is Sandvik 14C28N, and the bottom part is D2. Really nice knife. They came out with 2 versions of this knife. This is the original one, the puzzle pattern. The other one kind of looked like shark's teeth, I think. Same G10 handle, it's just that they changed the design. I think it's probably because a lot of people didn't like the puzzle design on this knife. I don't know. But the 2 steels are brazen together with copper. You can look, if I bring it closer to the camera, you can see the copper in there. Really nice. Model number of this knife is 1725 CB. This knife is designed by Tim Galian, and I forgot the guy's name in the video when I did the other Junkyard Dog, so I apologize for that, but thank God I remember now. This is a Tim Galian design. It's also a manual knife. Just a really nice knife overall. Runs on washers. Big knife, Junkyard Dog. So there you have it, the first 6 in this part of the video. I tried to keep these videos down to under 20 minutes. I just wanted to show off all the knives, talk about them a little bit. That's what I'm doing in this section of the video. So I'm going to go ahead and present you guys with the next 6 in the next video. So I hope to see you in just a few minutes.